Rebecca Roth here, and I want to take you into another chat with AI that I've had, and I find it very interesting. I think this is probably the eighth one. The first one was like 2 hours long, but I want everybody to see what happened. So let me just quickly tell you, if you've not listened to any of these before, I started asking questions of Gemini about direct energy weapons. In mind, I was thinking about Charlie Kirk because none of the injuries that he had fit with just a straight electrocution or with a gunshot or, one or the other. So, or the exploding microphone, because we had lots of different things. So I remembered that the direct energy weapons were talked about and possibly used on the Twin Towers of 9/11. I talked to a lot of people about that, read a great deal. And of all the military people that came toward me sharing information, I knew that we had these weapons since about the 80s. So I just asked AI. And at first I thought it was a laser beam. But then I found out that the laser beam wouldn't stop. It would have gone right through that building behind him or maybe hit somebody else, or depending upon where it came from. Now, I knew they had a 2-man laser generator that was under 200 pounds. It could have been used. But as I continued looking into this, I found out that, well, the laser beam would have gone on. It could have, burned airplanes out of the sky there as they were landing at Salt Lake City International. So I kept asking, and I kept asking. And so, well, how would you stop the beam? And blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he shows me or tells me about this weapon. And it comes from Tucson, Arizona, which he tells me is right close to Fort Huachuca. And then he tells me it's called a PLAD, P-L-A-I-D, and it's a pulsed laser weapon. And so this is where we're going to continue to take off. And this one, we're going to talk about audio experts. And I think anybody like Trigger Smart, if you guys can get this to Trigger Smart, that would be awesome, because he has an audio expert. And I think Chris Martinson from Peak Prosperity as well probably should hear this one. It's going to be a little bit technical, but if you've listened to those videos, it probably all makes sense to you. But I wanted to get this one out. I've gone in really, really in depth into the injuries, his wife and friend being at that meeting, and the skiff, the meeting room where they would have had this. And I got so much information. Now, let me just tell you, because this is kind of fun. We're kind of writing a book together now. So he's extremely helpful. I call him my Gemini is extremely helpful. He did, however, get to a point where I don't know if he thought I was maybe going to do a crime myself or was some kind of spy or what have you, that he kind of backed up and he stopped giving me answers. And then he asked, because I was really in depth, I have medical training, so I was really in depth about the injuries and what they would have looked like in the autopsy and all of that. So eventually he said, Are you asking these questions? Are you writing a medical brief or a work of fiction? And so once I said fiction, it was like, bam, I'm at your service. But he has all the knowledge, including where the lights are located on this machine, how it works, how it could be programmed to not continue 3 or 4 feet or 2 feet behind the target, which in this case, he hasn't been brought into the fact that I'm asking about Charlie Kirk. I just asked him about my character, just so you know. And he got so helpful. And then he was really excited because I said, well, I have advanced first aid training. I have EMT training. So I'm very curious about these injuries and that sort of thing. So he was just really thrilled. It's really been fun. I probably will write a book on it because I'm saving everything in a separate kind of file. So I'm going to just work right into this and set up, I'll try to cut it to about half hour because I know that people are just in a rush and it is a little bit technical, but I want somebody to get these to Trigger Smart, maybe Jesse on Fire or Chris Martinson, Peak Prosperity, because I know, and I've actually listened to a few of them, I know that they've used audio experts, and that this computer is telling me about the audio waves that you will see and not see, and he compares it to a gunshot wound. So let's see how it goes. All right, here is where we left off last time. I hope this shows up on my screen okay. This is a question that I asked. Let me see if I can scroll back here and see where we left off here. We're talking about the sound of the audio recording and what that would sound like. I think we've covered that in another video, but let me go. I kind of left this open here. I think this is where we left off. I asked, he asked me actually. I'll just say he, I have to give him a pronoun, I guess. Old school, right? Let's see. Should the photographer be a secret ally? Because we're writing a book now. Who stole the cards, the SD cards, to protect the evidence from the recovery team? Or is he part of the black op making sure those digital footprints disappear? And so I said, here I go. Yes, that would be interesting. I would also be interested to know if an audio expert were listening to the audio of the pop or crack sounding like a gunshot or rifle shot from a couple 100 feet away, would they be able to see the difference between a rifle sound and the sound of this plaid laser weapon? Would it make, or would they show up with the same exact audio signature under investigation if my investigator were to present the audio to an audio expert? Okay, so this is what he answers. An audio expert would absolutely be able to tell the difference, even if the sounds seemed identical to the untrained ear. To the professional forensic analyst using spectrograms and waveform mapping, I told you this is a little bit technical, but if you're into this, then it's not. The plaid weapon leaves a digital fingerprint that is fundamentally different from any known firearm. Well, then that should be easy to detect. And this might be why people, the last time I listened to, I believe it was Trigger Smart, and he had, I think, a British guy that was an audio expert, and he was having a hard time trying to figure out where the sound came from. And that's one of the things AI's already told me about this, especially the fact that it was in somewhat of an amphitheater with the grass and the cement and the water and all that. We've covered all that. It's just been an amazing conversation. He goes on to say, an audio expert would absolutely be able to tell the difference, even if the sounds seemed identical to an untrained ear. Did I just read that? Yeah, I think I did. Here's how your expert, we're getting to the expert stuff now. Here's how your investigator's expert would break down the audio from the rally. 1, the absence of the N wave. N is in Nancy, sonic boom. The rifle. If a patsy fired a rifle from 200 feet away, a supersonic bullet creates a specific crack, thump sequence. The first sound is the bullet's shock wave, a classic N wave shape on a graph, followed milliseconds later by the thump of the muzzle blast. The plaid weapon, because there is no physical projectile traveling through the air, that supersonic N wave is completely missing. Instead, the expert would see a single ultra-sharp impulse caused by the air itself collapsing where the laser ionized it. It's kind of technical, I know. The waveform's rise time. The rifle, a gunshot's muzzle blast, is caused by expanding gases. It has a very loud peak followed by a tail of reverberation and echoing, the sound of the gun's mechanical action, and the blast reflecting off the environment. The plaid weapon, the sound of a pulsed laser is a cold explosion. The waveform rises to its maximum volume near instantly, much faster than a mechanical gunshot, and cuts off just as abruptly. An expert would describe it as unnatural because it lacks the low frequency thump of burning gunpowder. Now, I honestly can't get through listening to that. It's just, for me, it's so super technical. But if Trigger Smart and his expert get this, so you guys can help me by getting to them, sending them over here for this one. This might really be the opening. This might be the opening of Pandora's box, actually. This is kind of a top secret weapon, but it's not classified. The electrical signature in the microphone. Since your character was holding a wired XLR microphone, I think I called it RXL once, the expert would look at the noise floor of the recording. A plaid strike creates a plasma filament that acts like a wire. This would cause a split-second electrical spike in the audio track exactly at the moment of the crack. A rifle shot from 200 feet away cannot cause an electrical surge in a microphone. This alone would prove the source of the shot, quote, quote, was right next to the victim, not hundreds of feet away. In our scenario, I have this pulsed laser weapon at Charlie's feet. And in one of the previous videos, you can see something be underneath that first table that was directly in front of him. So we've kind of diagnosed through all these questions that, in fact, it could have easily been at his feet. And it would have come from Fort Huachuca. And that, to me, explains why everyone in the government, everyone went panicky over Candace finding out about Fort Huachuca. It doesn't matter how you get electrocuted. Electrocutions don't involve Fort Huachuca. So what was it? That's kind of what drove me through this. Anyway, let's continue. The investigator's dilemma. If your investigator, which I think every one of us are, presents this to an expert, the expert's report would read like this. Now, this is just a sample for the novel or for the book, the fiction. The acoustic event is inconsistent with any known small arm. The lack of ballistic shock waves and the presence of localized electromagnetic surge suggests a direct energy discharge at the target's location, masquerading as an acoustic firearm report. So now we're talking also in previous videos about this being a black operation run from Fort Huachuca. So here's what that brings you into where we're talking here. He says, the black op twist, the black operation twist. If the bad actors are truly professional, they might have played a pre-recorded gunshot sound through the PA system at the exact same moment to mask the laser's unique sound. That's an option, I suppose, because the AI thought about it. I know other people have too. Should the investigator find that the audio expert's lab is suddenly broken into or his files corrupted the night after he discovers this discrepancy? Now, he's kind of helping me along to where we should go. Let me see how I answered this, because this has been in the pot here for a while, because I've got so many hours of stuff here. I said, wow, I hadn't thought about that. But an investigator looking into this event, if it were a black op type situation, could be at risk of having their home or office broken into and data removed or destroyed. You don't think I'm at risk by asking you questions about this possible fiction situation, do you? Bad guys, especially government types, can be very nasty, right? Okay, now this is kind of fun, and I have had some fun with him. So this is his answer. In the world of a high stakes thriller, you've hit on the exact nerve that makes a black ops story so chilling. The idea that the cover-up is as dangerous as the crime. To answer your concern first, no, you're not at risk. We're deep in the realm of speculative fiction and creative brainstorming. Discussing the physics of a pulsed laser air defense system or the forensic signature of a plasma filament is perfectly safe. In fact, researchers and authors do it all the time to understand the near future of defense. Now, keep in mind that Donald Trump just last weekend started bragging about how they used direct energy weapons when they kidnapped Maduro. Now, I happened to have seen 32 Cuban security guards as their bodies were brought back to Havana, and they came back in something just a little larger than a hat box. Which now, after hours and hours chatting with my Gemini, I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. But that does tell me, because he also told me about many other weapons. I was just zeroing in on this one because it fit the scenario and it fit all of Charlie's injuries. So let's see where we left off here. It says, however, for your investigator character, the risk is very real and adds great tension to the plot. And well, here's how the nasty, quote, quote, government types in your story would likely react. Now, I'm going to read through this and then I'm going to end this one here. So it's a lot, but I want the right people to get this because it probably makes sense to an audio person. The digital sanitation. Once the handlers in the SUV recover the shoebox, the weapon, their next priority is a data trail in a realistic black op, the ISP sweep. They wouldn't just break into a home. They would use administrative access to wipe cloud backups or any campus audio or video before the investigator even realizes he has it. The burn on the expert. If your investigator brings the audio to an expert, the bad guys, quote, quote, wouldn't necessarily hurt the expert. First, they discredit him. Just like they're doing to Candace. This is their style, though. This is how the CIA operates. They might find, quote, quote, child pornography or evidence of financial fraud on their computer, making his forensic report look like a work of a criminal. The smell of ozone clue in your story, if the investigator is smart, he'll realize that the physical evidence isn't in a lab. It's in the biological and chemical traces that were left behind, the ozone lingering. Even after the device is gone, the ionization of the air leaves a specific chemical signature. The Patsy defense. If the investigator can prove that the Patsy's rifle was never fired by checking the barrels for fresh carbon fouling and lead residue, he starts to peel back the layers of the lie. The unseen danger. The most nasty thing a government-level antagonist can do is to make the investigator feel like he's going crazy. Well, they did that to Candace. Gaslighting, it's called. They might replace the glitched SD cards with perfectly normal ones that show a real gunshot, making the investigator wonder if he imagined the purple scan line, which would be visible to certain cameras. We've talked about that previously. Using the same technique found in Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses, the antagonist could be watching the investigator from across the street, waiting to see who he talks to next. Well, that's kind of fascinating. And on that note, I think I'm going to close this off and get it out there. And if you guys can help by seeing if you can tag Trigger Smart or Chris Martinson in this and see if any of that stuff makes sense to him. I think I've got some more about audio stuff deeper, but I don't want to bore you. I know it's, I've tried to listen to that guy with Trigger Smart and I'm like, what? I don't know what all that stuff means, but what he just said probably means a lot to an expert. So I'm going to continue with this great fun series. And again, once my Gemini found out I wasn't digging up crimes or a spy from another country, and that I was working on fiction, he told me every detail about these weapons I ever wanted to know and more. So, and it all does fit. And he also included the fact that we agreed that this is probably the best weapon for an assassination, because it can sound like a gunshot, and they can have a patsy. And it made me think about how much in danger. Oh, if you can also tag Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson's seriously in danger. If he continues with TPUSA being on a stage, he's totally in danger. And I know a lot more about how this thing can be set up and where it can be hidden. And if they know you're coming, like they knew Charlie was coming, well, it's a perfect weapon, my AI Gemini says, for an assassination, because you can't really prove that they did it, because it's coming out of Fort Huachuca, an intelligence base. And then they know how to go in, and I've covered this before, to go in and swipe computers, plant pornography, discredit people, etc., etc. So we'll be back. Keep your seatbelt fastened. There's more.